4 o'clock meeting at 10 minutes after 4. At this time, we'll turn it over to City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. It's a continuation of a series of budget workshops, and I've asked Lisa to pull together some information, provide you with greater detail on our taxes and fees and the revenue neutral rate and how that's calculated, and also, I guess, an update on our revenue forecast. And with that, I'd like to invite Lisa to share her insights with you.
Good afternoon, everybody. You should have packets provided of the overheads. If you have any questions, please stop me anywhere. Today I'd like to cover the sales tax projection revision. I sent an email out last week about some unfavorable news that we had received. I'd also like to talk about the general fund revaluation and provide some additional information about that, and review the changes that was made by City Council back on May 5th, and then also look at fee schedule proposed changes. So first, this should be familiar. This is a copy of the top half of the document that was attached to the email last week, and I want to go over what it outlines. The column ad valorem levy for tax year 2013. What a levy is simply the value of your home times the tax rate. That's the levy that the city asks you to pay for your particular residence. The total levy is what the North Carolina Department of Revenue uses to determine our share of sales tax distribution. The levy for 2013 is what they use for our distribution that we're receiving now in 2015. And basically all they do is take everybody's levy in the county, total it, and then figure out what percent of the total everybody is. And that was the bottom half of the sheet. So if you take our levy amount divided by the total levy, in this left-hand column, we're currently at 9.65%. And when sales tax distribution is sent from the state, they look at this percentage and they say, okay, we have $100,000 to give you this month, you get 9.65% of that. Now, when we were talking to the state earlier last week, they were reviewing the new levies and the new percentages that will be used for the sales tax distribution in fiscal year 2016. This column here, this levies for tax year 2014, was the new information that the Department of Revenue provided. They're still estimates, but they feel sure that those are really good numbers for us to use to look at. And when we looked at them, what we found was that they were a lot more unfavorable than we had projected. A lot of that is due to growth, which we have no way of forecasting throughout the rest of the county, throughout other municipalities. And as you can see, if you take those levies year over year, these are the increases and decreases. Just about everybody went up except for a few small amounts and us. The county, of course, they increased their tax rate that year, so that a bulk of that percentage is because of their increased tax rate. They've also got growth that's included in this levy amount. What does that do to our percentage? It lowers it. We're now a little bit smaller. This is what we call the piece of the pie when we're making that reference in other meetings. So now our piece of the pie went from 9.65% to 8.39%. What does that mean? It means that we've lost more revenue. This sales tax projection is not really sustainable at that increased level. It's down about $650,000 from the original projections, and we've worked to rebalance the budget, if you will. We used some of the amounts that council had slated as cuts, along with some adjustments to our projections for other revenue types that were conservative. We were a little bit more aggressive with them, but they're still within a comfort zone within a reasonable projection.
I know what you're talking about with the county raises their tax, this has effect on their sales tax. Does this affect everybody else in the county of these other places such as Monroe Springs, Monroe? Does it affect them as bad as it does Monroe?
A lot of them are going up, down, not as bad. I don't think they had quite as much of a swing.
Well, I don't claim to know all about it, I didn't know the topic, but I don't understand how it affects us more than it would someone else. It may be population-wise, but I don't know how it would be that because it's based on, and then the city of Monroe brings in most of the sales tax anyhow. But I know it's the formula they use, and we've tried to get it changed, and we have not been successful changing it. But I don't see why it should hurt us so more so than some of the others in these 14 cities in this county.
It's purely that calculation. Because Union County is now a bigger piece of the pie, they take a bigger share of everybody else's. So if you look, their overall distribution is going up by 2%. And then Indian Trail went down by 0.3. Well, the rest of these are where it pretty much came from. Everybody else lost a little bit.
I don't know if we could ever get the legislator, and we've tried to get them to look at it. We've talked about this many times. We need to push forward somehow or another to see if we can get this formula looked at, changed or something. I don't deny them what they should get, but you know, when we decrease and we the city and the county is putting all the money on the table.
Yeah.
We do, I don't know what percentage it would be, but the percentage is great as far as sales tax is what the city of Monroe puts out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go minus, we go into the red.
Yeah, we have absolutely no control.
Well, I know it, I know the formula, that's why I say we need
It's
to,
frustrating because of that.
we need to do something and get on board and work this formula some way or another. But that's what I say.
So now, instead of 600,000, what you're trying to tell us is our loss is 1.372243.
That's the current fiscal year. This projected, this is excess over what we have budgeted in the current year. And then basically what we were looking at here was, will we get the same amount of excess next year? Not really. We're just about getting less next year than where we're at this year. It just kept getting bleaker and bleaker when we looked at those numbers last week, and I'm like, we have to revise this and make sure we take this all into consideration. The next slide, what I want to show is exactly how much a penny of our tax rate affects that sales tax distribution. So if we raise taxes or lower taxes, how does that affect the sales tax distribution? What I did here, this is the ad valorem levy for 2014 that the state gave us. I calculated it based on if our tax rate was only 54.5 cents instead of 55.5 cents. And basically it lowered our share of the distribution from 8.39 to 8.25. And then I plugged it in to show at 8.39%, we were getting for the year, this is based on an estimated sales tax distribution for next fiscal year. If we had at 55.5 cents, we would get this amount. If we had lowered our tax rate back in this year, we would get 77,000 less. So I just kind of wanted to show how that affects our total revenue. And you can see it takes it away from us and it redistributes it throughout the rest of the cities and the county especially.
What you're saying there is you would suggest we decrease our tax rate.
When you decrease the tax rate, you not only lose that ad valorem dollars, you lose that much of the sales tax as well. And of course, that amount will change if the estimate goes higher. It's more. If the estimate goes lower, it's a little bit less. Yeah, that's just to freeze it in time to kind of give you an idea of what it would be. So then the revaluation. This is the slide that I had brought out back, I think it was early April, that showed the proposed revenue neutral rate. What it depicts is the current value. This is what we have, that we have billed taxes for in this current fiscal year. This estimated value here is what the county has told us that we will be able to bill for next year. If we want to raise the same amount of money, so we're not increasing taxes because we're not trying to get more money, we're just trying to maintain, we would need to just adjust our rate to this 58.63%, excuse me. If we did not change the rate, we would lose that $1 million. Yeah, plus the sales tax that I showed on the last slide. So take that, that was the effect of 1 cent, so times 3 cents, be about 1.3 million. Let's see. Overall, in the real property category, that's the one I really want to focus on because I want to give you a little bit more information about how it affects the residents or the businesses. Overall, this particular category went down 5.2%. But I want to show how it breaks down. What we did was we went out and in the current tax system took a printout of all the residential tax customers that we have. And we pretty much just went down the list and randomly selected 100 people and said, this is the tax value we have in our system. Then we looked every one of those up on the county system because all the new values are on their website, and we compared the two values. Out of those 100 folks that we selected, 29 people's value increased and 71 decreased. So, yeah, quite a few more did go down. We took the average of the change in our sample pool, and it showed a decrease in value of this 13.6%. So what I'm showing here is if you just take a home, $100,000, keep it simple. At the current tax rate, they're paying $555. Based on the average decrease in value, this is what the county's saying that we can bill based on. So at the revenue neutral rate, their bill is only going to be $507. It's still a lower bill than what they would have got at the current rate. They're still feeling, a little bit of a release. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the tax bill will go down. The as far as the residential makes up about 53% of the total real property. So the other half of the picture is the commercial. And we did the same thing for these folks. We selected 75 in our test group, and about half went up and half went down. It was all over the place. But when we averaged out the effect of this group, it actually went up by 1.5%. So we just picked some random values again and said, okay, well, let me show you how this will affect your tax bill based on the average. I think the average commercial locations could see a slight increase in their tax bill year over year. And then I also wanted to take a look at how that racked up as far as where we fell out with the other cities. We're still not at the top of the graph. It moved us up a little bit, but this is also based on last year's tax rates, and we don't know what any of them are going to do as far as the proposed tax rates for this year. So we're still providing more services overall than most of these cities, and still would have a lower tax rate than Goldsboro and Salisbury, who don't have 4 of the services roughly each that we have.
Lisa, what about people that are doing their, appealing the property values, the taxes, and they're gonna go down, and I understand there's a significant number of people that are doing that, how's that going to affect this?
It's constantly a moving target. It could go either, I guess it could go down a little bit from where it's at. Basically, the estimates that they sent me was based on sales data, and we received a printout of the actual data that was in their database like a month later, and it was just a little bit higher. So hopefully that difference will, it'll still be a comfortable projection. Any questions on? And then the revenue neutral rate, as I had mentioned back in April, also holds true for the downtown district. If we would like to see the same level of revenue, we would need to adjust this tax rate from 20 cents to 21.9 cents. That's about all I have on the revenue neutral rate. We did use the revenue neutral rate to project the revenue in this fiscal year 2016 budget.
Tell me again how you made up for that $600 and some odd thousand and the loss of sales tax revenue.
Out of the changes that were made at the last meeting by the council, we were directed to eliminate the pay plan phase 1 implementation, remove that manager and the HVAC specialist. We added the assistant fire marshal position. It was a net savings of about $527,000. That plus an adjustment to the utility sales tax revenue. We pushed our projection up a little bit and still feel that that is a reasonable expectation that we should receive that money. And that was how we balanced it back out. As far as the general fund balance activity, we did take out the one project to replace the ball field lights. We did have to add in a truck for the fire marshal. We're still anticipating a proposed use of the unassigned fund balance for one-time expenses of $2.2 million. And then we go on to the utility and rate changes that are proposed. Water and sewer, I'd like to do the incremental increase for next year of 2% for each one of those. Electric, we're proposing fee structure changes only. It's designed to be revenue neutral as well. There's a couple categories that are going up and a couple categories in their fee structure that are going down, but it's designed to have no net effect on the bottom line. These were based on recommendations by a consultant that came in and did a rate study for us this past year. The natural gas, we added a vehicle fueling rate. We have one customer that does fuel their vehicle. And I also wanted to remind everybody, last year the state mandated that we charge 7% sales tax on electric, and originally they had said we needed to charge 7% sales tax on gas as well. And then they backed off right at the last minute, like right at June 30th, and they said, well, okay, you gas cities out there, we'll let you do 3.5% this year, but you'll need to do the other 3.5% next year. So those folks will see that other 3.5% be added to their bill.
That's state mandated.
Yes, sir. Solid waste, I missed the end of that meeting. In the proposed budget, we have $1 a month increase to customers to offset the cost of residential bulk pickup.
That recommendation did come from the committee to the city council for the $1 addition.
Okay, Good, thank you. What I wanted to show here is kind of the same. How does this affect our average resident? For water, their bill just goes up about 51 cents, sewer about 69 cents. The electric, because it changes the base rate and the charge per kilowatt hour, it actually, for the average customer, went down $1.47. And as your bill gets bigger, so some of those customers that have maybe a not so efficient home, older home, may see a lower bill because that rate, that per kilowatt hour rate went down. So I think that'll help some of the folks out. And then of course the solid waste increase of $1.
The electric there, is that just fee structure there, what you talked about?
Yes.
Or-
And this was just a snapshot of how the fees changed. We have all of those different rate classes that have different fee structures listed down the left-hand side here. And as you can see on this percent increase column, decrease, some of them went up, some of them went down, but the overall change is just 0. And this, again, was the recommendation of the rate consultants. As far as fee changes, we had 3 sets of fee changes. The airport building standards and parks and rec, and I'm going to touch on each one. At the airport, we're proposing an after-hours departure and arrival fee. This would be for customers that come in between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., which is outside the normal hours of operation. This would be a new fee, and if they require under 2 hours of our time, it's a $75 charge. Over 2 hours, $150. The hangar number 3 rental is currently in the fee schedule as a flat amount. All the other hangars are at $4 a square foot. We just wanted to adjust it to the $4 per square foot to make it consistent with the other hangars. And the last one, the regulated garbage collection, this is required because customs trash has to be handled in a special manner and disposed of, incinerated. This is a pass-through fee that will charge those customers to dispose of their garbage.
These after-hours rates, how do they compare with the other airports that does the same, about the same?
Yes, sir. Ours is better.
I'm sorry.
It's more competitive.
Okay, that's what we're looking for.
Thank you. The next is for building standards. It's proposed to raise standalone fees about, $10 each, and also increase our commercial square foot multiplier by 5%. These were compared to Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and the flat fees are still lower than what theirs are. The commercial multiplier was always higher, and it would just go up by that 5%. Parks and recreation fees. Increase the non-resident senior center membership fee. The current fee is $25 per year. We'd like to raise that to $60 per year, which is $5 per month. And these are for non-residents.
How many non-residents do we have that use that?
About 25% of our membership at the senior center is non-resident.
Non-resident is outside the city.
Yes,
Yes. The other changes are to change family membership policies to be consistent with other facilities. The golf course, I think, has a little bit of some differences there. Tanya might be able to elaborate if you have specific questions. And we'd also like to add competitive junior pricing at the golf course. It's a category we don't have out there, I think, right now. That is all I have. The rest of the schedule is actually to call for public hearing tonight, and potential public hearing and adoption on June 2nd unless council directs us otherwise.
I have a question. We, at the last meeting we went through, we were going through the lights and some of the things that were specifically in the budget. And then, did we do all of that? I thought there was still some more things that we needed to talk about as far as some of the things that we had budgeted that we were going through.
We finished up, we got through all the slides. I think there was,
I would say we went through each of the big buckets: equipment, the vehicles, community improvements, and personnel.
Okay.
So unless y'all want to revisit something.
Well, and my last question is that it said when we were going through, you know, it was coming out of the general fund and there was the balance, the $2 million. Can you explain to me how that works? Because I must not be following you too well. Remember we were saying, well, we deferred it on the general fund? There was something.
like
maybe,
funding it from the fund balance
right,
as
maybe
opposed
that's what it
to.
is. Yeah. Can you explain how much we have in fund balance? And,
Yeah, let me go back to that. As part of the fund balance policy, it allows for one-time expenses. A lot of those bigger capital purchases, like the ball field lights we took out here, the roof down here at the Parks Maintenance Building, a lot of vehicles. It's allowed under that policy to actually fund those from the fund balance. This is our savings account. You know, we have our operating revenues and expenses, and those two have to equal. And then in addition to that, we have our savings account over here that's our fund balance. And we're saying, well, you know, didn't quite have enough in the operating, but we've got our savings account over here, and we can still achieve some of our goals by using this as a funding source.
and how much do we usually keep in that balance?
We have a fund balance policy that requires either 7.5 million or 25% of the budget. Right now, we're at 25% of the budget, and it's somewhere close to 8 million. That's just an undesignated or unassigned, we call it now. It's changed so many times over the years. This unassigned is above, this is above and beyond the 25% requirement that council has voted and approved and has in place.
And that's usually what we have. We have usually that much every year, or is that something that we try to keep every year?
This has actually grown over the last few years. That this is in addition to that 7.5 or 8 million. And then we have this formal assignment here that we actually set aside some of our unassigned fund balance. We did that for a couple of reasons. We used some of it to defer costs in street resurfacing and airport operational costs in future years. We've kind of just set it aside and said, okay, well, we know we want to do this every year, and we've just been drawing that down. That's why I show them year 3 of 5 in both of those. Greg was using that as just a funding strategy to be able to make sure we accomplish those goals. We also have money set aside for some airport expansion. That's at 1.2 million, and we've kind of just been using that to match grants, and as the grants reimburse, we've been replenishing some of it. It's become kind of a revolving fund. But the unassigned, that's grown a little bit. This was as of March 31st. Since then, we did vote to renovate the Winchester pool, and these are projected increases that we will have at the end of the year. And that's basically how it's grown, is just because of conservative projections and frugal spending. Just coming in under.
Oh, that's a term I love to hear.
Scared me.
Give him a value.
So it's not as bleak as what we might think. It's not like we're just on the verge of just going under or anything. And I think that's, you know, what I wanted to check with to make sure.
I think if I have to be 100% honest, I would like to see more of these one-time capital expenditures funded from our current year operating funds. Like I said, it's acceptable to do this, but you know, at some point, we need to build that in and get that to that level.
You can't do it every year.
Right.
That would be gone.
Well, I know that we amended our policy some as far as the amount of money that we would have in reserves for general fund. I know it was a quarter, it's 25% of the operating budget, but we also, I think at one of our last finance committee meetings, decided that whenever we could, we would want to increase that. And it was at 7.5 million, and I think we've gotten up to 8 million now or something.
Yeah,
like that.
it was the greater of 7.5 million or 25%,
Right,
and the
okay.
25% has been higher now, so it's up around 8 million.
Okay.
You know, one thing, I'm not so sure, Mayor had a comment a while ago about trying to address some of our situations with the general assembly. I think the general assembly is favoring cutting more and more of our power out and giving it to the counties. If you look back, we don't ever seem to win. We just dwindle, and I think that's something that we really got to be cognizant of.
I agree. Looking back at those percentages of the distribution and, you know, year over year, yeah, it's diminished considerably just since I've been here.
Well, you know, they changed the Powell bill.
And that's gone down as well.
It made it a little better. I don't know if we could ever get a look at this or not, but you know, we used to occasionally, once in a while, have a legislative breakfast or something, invite them down. We might want to think about doing that, or going down to Raleigh and sitting down and talk with our representative and say, well, look, we don't think this is quite fair, and here's why we don't. And I don't know if it would help us. I don't know that it would hurt us any. I'm not sure after this, maybe we get straightened out in the budget sometime after July, if the council wanted to do that, maybe the breakfast or some delegation go down and make an appointment and talk with our representative and just see if they would look at this, the way the tax is distributed and the way the tax come in. We put more of it in the pot and we get less of it out. And that formula is just not right. And I think we need to make some moves on that, up to the council, how they want to handle it, if they do, but I'm not so sure we don't need a delegation to talk to our people who represent us first, either have a breakfast in Valley View or go to Raleigh. That's my opinion, because we need to do something about this if we can.
It'd be nice to see that sales tax distributed back based on point of origin.
Of course, I know we've talked about this before, and it's an uphill battle. It won't be saying, okay, well, come on in, get it. It's not gonna be easy if you could even get it done.
Yeah, the sad part about it is, most of that legislation is coming from the small counties. Their representatives are pushing the legislature to redistribute that money more. Their theory is that they're the stepchild, and that Charlotte and Raleigh and all the other counties should subsidize to some degree, you know, what we get back. So until if you can't get your legislature to vote against something like that, or, and I'm not saying it, we would be wise to bring them here or go to them and talk to them about it and express those views, but like I say, that's where most of that legislation is coming from.
Well,
It's
that's
the
true,
smaller
that's
counties.
true, but the formula
They're
you're
pushing
talking
it
about
through,
now
and
is
these
not
guys are
passed.
voting for it.
That's
Mayor.
not passed.
Mayor, what I would want to point out is that currently there are still the two competing plans. There has been no movement on either plan. As you were aware, Mayor, from having been at the Metro Mayor's conference, Senator Rucho has his plan, Senator Brown has his plan. Neither are willing to meet in the middle. It is expected that after the House gets through the budget and the Senate gets through the budget, they will start talking about it again. But there has been no movement we're aware of from our contacts, from our folks at the League or Metro Mayors on anything because of the upcoming Memorial Day holiday and the fact that the House has introduced its budget.
Well, I think we need to be proactive. We need to go ahead and maybe have a legislative breakfast or something happen here to understand how we feel, rather than wait till they've already passed something.
And just as a reminder, we did during both Town Hall Day and Metro Mayor's Conference did communicate these issues to our delegation, but the more they hear it, our friends at both the League and Metro Mayors will tell you, the more they hear it, the better you are. So whatever
Well, you know,
council wants to do, we'll assist.
from what I got down there, I don't know, nobody knows what they're gonna do, but I don't believe it's a done deal, and like some folks thought a month or two back, that that's what it's gonna happen. They're gonna take from the rich counties and take it down east and give it to the poor county. You know, there may be, I think should be some way maybe to do something in some of those counties, but all those counties is not poor counties. If you look at some of the numbers down through there, but what they do in, and I'm sure it's in other places other than Monroe, but I don't know what their figures are. But tell me why any city should put more in the pot and get less out. I mean, there ain't nothing right about that. But that's something we need to think about, something we need to work on. And if I had suggested it, Ms. Nash also said, maybe a breakfast or whatever. But I think we need to do something, we get over this budget, see what we can do. If nothing else, let us be heard again. And we've been heard somewhat, but let the council, let them be heard from the full council or whatever, where we have, because it's just not fair to be distributed the way it's doing it. And again, I repeat, you put more money in and they give you less out. That ain't good math.
Is the thought sometime latter part of June or early July, or what would be your interest? In terms of like a delegate breakfast?
I think the better, the sooner, simply, the reason I say that is because they still marching down there, and we need to get them before they get through with the march, so to speak. What I'm really saying, before they decide what they're gonna do, because like I say, they've heard us somewhat, but they can hear from the full council if we do it this way. Maybe before they even take a vote on it. That's my thinking anyway. If we're gonna do it, we need to do it sooner instead of later, because it's not gonna be any effective to wait. It'd be probably more effective, if effective at all, to do it sooner.
Mayor, one other thing is that you would want to also talk about Representative Staines' bill that does provide the local options in terms of making up for lost revenues as well. That is still out there. So while the sales tax distribution is of primary importance, replacement revenue, of course, is something the council has said as part of the agenda, needs to be on the table as well. So
We
I
need to
would,
cover everything.
Oh, absolutely, we need to put it all on the table,
sir.
but, you know, if we can get a better formula or a better way of doing, not only our proportion, what affects us will affect other folks also. But, you know, if we could get the heads up on that thing, maybe we get 1 out of 3 or something to go back and say, well, you know, this don't quite look right. So, I can't see how you can sit down and talk to anybody and they understand when they can see this figures here and see the formula in the pot, how they can say, well, my, y'all put all the money in the hat and then they take it and distribute it up, or most of the money in the hat and distribute it up, and y'all get a minus. So I think that's what we should do. That's just my 2 cents.
Where I'd like to go from here, wanted to see if there was a consensus. Is everybody okay with moving forward with the budget as it's presented, including the revenue neutral rate?
I'd like to bring one thing back up, and that is alternate 1 and 2, or A and B. I'd like to revote on that, on the budget.
On the personnel
Yeah.
alternate? Okay. Call that.
The one that's already passed, you want to vote on that?
I'm asking to vote on one.
Are you making a motion to do that?
Yes, I am.
Larry, I'm gonna let you drive. Is this the one with the org charts? Yes.
I think Councilmember was referring to this alternate 1, which basically,
I would make the motion that we go with alternate 2.
quickly, a quick review, maybe it's easier to look at it from a number standpoint. Alternate one eliminated the assistant city manager for finance, the assistant finance director, assistant recreation director, and allowed for reclassifying those positions to create a finance director position, city manager position, and recreation director position. And also, let's see, adding the assistant fire marshal position, right, circling right there in the, I guess, orange. Alternate two did some of the same thing, except it, on the left side of the screen, the finance positions were continued. On the right side of the screen, the recreation positions remain unchanged. And it allowed adding, or I'm sorry, reclassifying the assistant city attorney from part-time to full-time. So the major difference
Salary
between,
increase, right?
ma'am,
For the salary increase.
it's part-time to full-time. Part-time to full-time. So the major difference between alternate two versus alternate one is reclassifying the assistant city attorney's position and not doing the changes in recreation. And that's basically the difference between alternate one and alternate two.
Is that
I don't even see
saving?
recreation up there.
That's why it's not, alternate two is not doing the changes to recreation. Alternate one is doing the changes for recreation and for finance.
I make a motion that we go to and approve alternate two.
Question. If alternate one saved the city more than alternate, the alternative two?
It's almost a wash. If you look, it's about $50,000 change. Alternate one, alternate two, it's about 50,000. Because again, the major difference is in alternate one is more comprehensive, but doesn't include converting the assistant city attorney's position from part-time to full-time. By making that conversion, this option two, drops out the reclassifications in recreation. That's the major difference.
Tell me
One
again,
and two.
what we just cut out of personnel to make up that $600,000?
That was the salary survey.
Implementing proposed implementation of phase one of the pay plan, which was a swag of an estimate, roughly 2% of payroll. I presume the cost, full cost of implementing the pay plan, which has not been determined, would be considerably more than that, and it would likely take multiple year implementation. And so this was an initial allocation of resources to cover a portion of its implementation. And the board 2 weeks ago decided to defer that cost and not include it in next year's budget.
Okay, and also remove the assistant city manager.
Correct.
Remove the HVAC specialist. Come up with that figure on that. Remove, let's say, you still want to do, I guess, fire marshal position. Okay.
This was per alternate one, and I just want to add that 419,000 is just the general funds portion of that amount that we saw
Right.
last week, and that's why the difference.
Well, in two though, there is more difference than just that pay difference between a part-time and full-time individual. So can we go back to that for just a second? And tell me what else is being added except for taking an employee from part-time to full-time? Something's got to be added because it was 98 in the last slide, and it's 19 in this one, and if you're only changing one, and
I'm sorry, what?
actually less than that, it's only 29,000.
This is not lining up all the positions from alternate one.
Well,
The
I
alternate
have
two.
a problem with it, and I'm not being critical of the person that generated these graphics, but it's just confusing to look at with all these colors and me personally in that structure fee and then what's listed above, I'm looking at line items and I see a salary change from a part-time to a full-time individual and a savings down there, and that salary change of minus 19. You go back to alternate 1, I'm seeing minus 96. And if you only, if you're going up 29 or 1 employee, how did it drop from 96 to 19? It should have only dropped from 96 to, what, 46 or 30, whatever it is, by a difference. 20. Am I the only one not seeing this, or am I?
I think the biggest difference between the two.
Maybe I need my calculator. I'm obviously not good at adding and subtracting, but I know the difference between 96 and 19. And that's a hell of a lot more than 29.
Just to make a stab at it, I think the biggest difference is adding the accounting technician is eliminated in alternate 2, and the reclassifications and reorganization in the recreation division is not there in alternate 2, and that's the offset to changing the legal assistant attorney from part-time to full-time. That kind of washes each other out.
I think in alternate 1, I think both that it's expressed that you needed the change in the recreation and that you needed the technician.
Mm-hmm.
That's alternate 1.
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor, I move that we go with alternate 2. Put that on the floor.
I have a motion for alternate 2. Do I have a second?
These are separate alternatives. They're not meant to be apples and apples. They're apples and watermelons. So
I just see that.
trying to say, well, you know, line it up specifically, it's not going to line up. I mean, they're different alternatives to give you a different perspective of how to approach staffing.
Yeah, I thought that we were very thoroughly beaten to death before and agonized over. It's just astonishing to me that in 2 weeks, some great revelation in here.
Maybe, is there an element, I mean, we don't have to take them the way they are. There certain elements that we could?
No, they were one or 2. So I guess we have to vote again.
Mayor, you
I
don't.
have a motion and a second. Do I have a second?
I don't know if you have a second, Mayor.
Right.
If that for record.
If you do not have a second,
Again, I hate to beat this to death now, but it is just a matter of me. We've got 2 alternatives here, and the real difference that I see is one position, and apparently I'm not seeing those other positions that would be changed or added back. This
alternative does not include recreation.
Or the
So why? Okay, so.
I mean, it's 2 different proposals. I mean, I can't say
I
any
move that
differently.
we,
This does not include making changes to recreation. Alternative 1 does.
I move that we accept alternative 1 as we already have done it. We made it that.
I'll second because I seconded it the first time.
Let me see where I'm at. Do I go with the first motion to?
Mayor, you still don't have a second on the first motion, so the first motion dies for lack of a second. So there's no actual action taken. So then the question for the makers of the second motion is, your motion reaffirms council's prior action.
Prior action.
And the question is it a necessary motion? Because if you don't have it,
back every time.
it wouldn't change anything, because there's always an option until you approve the budget to continue making changes. So if council wishes to make the motion in second and vote on it, it will reaffirm what you did 2 weeks ago.
Mayor, I concur with the city attorney. If this is basically where we were a couple weeks ago, and I was not here, and I agree with the option 1, but I don't see why we would need to.
I recall my motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Did you say we did need to vote or just let?
No, sir, the maker of the motion withdrew their motion, and if the seconder assuming the seconder agrees with that, there is now nothing on the floor to be considered.
All right, moving right along.
Is there any other items from last week or this week? Do we have a consensus on the fee schedule, on the changes that were proposed, on our rates and
Garbage,
fees?
on the garbage that we just, the fee schedule that they just met, is that coming before council, or is that just gonna be in the budget or what?
It'll be in the budget, and did we decide to do the rest of this fiscal year?
We're going to do the rest of this fiscal year with the additional fee negotiation, I think for the month of June. $10,000, is that correct, Lisa? For June, and then for the upcoming budget year, it'll be for $1 per household for the way that you presented it here.
Okay.
So are we gonna vote on that before it goes into the budget, or what?
Well, that is the recommendation of the staff, and, you know, if the staff would like to present that, and, you know, they could go ahead and, that's what they have. If, you know, if the council wants to, you know, have a discussion on it, vote on that one particular component of the fee structure, then they can do that.
If not hearing consensus to take it out, it would remain. We've proposed in the budget the dollar change
Yeah.
for the solid waste to allow for increased bulk pickup. So unless there was a consensus to take it out, there's no other action.
Now, this
And
bulk-
I need
The bulk pickup gonna increase,
$1 a week or $1 a month.
well, they will be picking up each week, is that?
Yes.
It's gonna be throughout the city.
Yes.
In Dallas,
Because that's.
Well, hey, pick up those one street or two.
Well, now, I was answering in terms of the next year's budget. In terms of proceeding for the remainder of this fiscal year, there's an action report we can take.
And one of the concerns that came up from a civilian on our committee was that he did not want this to be adopted and the public not have an opportunity to come and speak, you know, either for or against it. And we did indicate that, you know, we're gonna have a public hearing on the budget, and if there's anything at all that him or anybody else wants to come and speak on, they'll have the opportunity to speak on it at that time.
So is this separate and apart from the ordinance?
It is separate from the ordinance, and as the manager indicated, there is an action item on the table for discussion, and that was staff had proposed to provide bulk heat every week to all the residents. The city would cover that cost for the month of June, which is $10,000. So that action item is still to be discussed and voted on by council, and then going forward with the proposed dollar, starting July 1st, will be part of the budget process and receive public comment and discussion.
Is that for 2 months, $10,000?
I think it's just the month of June.
Just a month of
Yeah,
June.
just one.
$10,000?
Just-
If the board was so inclined, you could debate that and discuss that at this strategic session. Because it's not, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not on the agenda this evening.
But the agenda, the notice did state it was not only to hold this meeting, but also to take action if necessary. So council has the ability to take action if it wishes, or it can wait until meeting tonight.
So we were, you said that was gonna come back to us in June, didn't you, Lisa? June 2nd meeting?
The ordinance was coming. I
The
think there might
ordinance
have
was
been a misunderstanding. We didn't quite discuss when we would bring back the bulking every week for the month of June.
Right, we didn't, there was no decision made on that.
No,
It just came out of committee as a recommendation to come to the city council,
correct.
but it was not stated when.
Right.
Hey, I say throw this out there and see if this doesn't clean the situation up, and if
And
it
that's-
doesn't, next year, we can go to a new plan or something.
Well, we were told that it's all over the city, it's not just.
Right, right.
You know, some areas it's all over the city, they're having problems with people putting garbage out on days that are not the days.
I might start calling in my neighborhood and get that,
So instead of leaving trash out for 1 week, 2 weeks, now they're gonna leave it out for 1 week, unless we put something with some teeth in it to make people comply and strengthen this ordinance, it's not gonna do any good, whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks.
That's
That's
fine,
coming.
June, placed in the ordinance is for.
right.
It's, the
Not the
ordinance is
budget,
coming
but
to
the
the
ordinance.
council June the 2nd.
Correct.
I
with
agree.
the fines and everything in there.
I agree. Fines, liens, plays.
That's part of it.
Well, you know, I think if we do the ordinance, and I think when we adopt it, it ought to be enforced, you know.
Exactly.
If we're not gonna enforce it, just don't even bring it in here for me to vote on. I've said that on many council meetings. I can name several, but I won't get into that. But if we're gonna do this thing, if we're gonna do an ordinance, we're gonna adopt it, let's enforce it. Because it's no good if we don't.
Does the committee have an objection for taking up the increasing the bulky waste pickup at this meeting? If we did, if you like it June second,
Staff is ready to present it, that's fine.
When will this start?
what's 10,000 for June, so. if
No, I'm
there's
talking about when will the pickup start? Like tomorrow, or next week, or when?
It can start next week. Basically, staff is proposing to provide bulky waste collection to all the residents on an every week basis for the month of June. We are requesting a budget amendment from the fund balance of $10,000 that will cover the cost for the month of June. Waste Pro is ready to accommodate if it's approved, starting next week.
From the solid waste.
Solid waste.
From the solid waste fund balance, sorry.
Amen.
And there are monies to accommodate that $10,000 in the solid waste fund balance.
Yes, sir.
Do we need a motion?
All right. You need a motion?
Well, I think we need discussion, to see if anyone, the committee has read all the information, and staff did a great job in preparing us for the meeting we had today. So if there's anybody on council that wants to have discussion on, or ask questions, and I think this would be the time to do it.
Did you say you need to vote on?
I'd say if there's further discussion, if the council wants to discuss it before, we have a vote, then this is the time for discussion to occur.
Well, then I move that we discuss it.
Well,
I thought that's what we were doing, was discussing it. Well, let's just discuss it some more then. All right, anybody got anything else on this solid waste, the garbage? How it works, what it's gonna cost, when it starts? All right. Hearing none. All in favor? Do I have a
Is
motion?
A motion.
we do not have a motion yet.
That's correct.
And I just, and again, the staff did a very good job in presenting it to the committee. And the committee did have an opportunity to review it several days before we got to the committee meeting. And if there's any questions that council members have as a result of complaints they've heard out of neighborhoods or from other individuals or from landlords, from tenants, from residents, anything that you want to present at this time, Lisa's prepared to try to answer those questions for you.
Are we gonna do anything as far as getting people to call in? Is this something that we can get people to say, come and pick up my couch, it's sitting on the curb, or is this just something we're gonna put it out on the curb and then come by and we can get it?
We are proposing to the every week bulky pickup as opposed to the on-call service that some of the other municipalities utilize. We have discussed that option with Waste Pro. They indicated that it just simply would not work for the city because of the amount of rental that we have.
Inefficient, in other words.
Right.
There's too many trips.
But once the ordinance is brought to the council, there will be fines associated with if they're put out there on days they're not supposed to be out there.
We don't charge the wrong people.
Like it.
So that ordinance will come on June 2nd.
And I'm sure, and from my understanding, you have quite a lengthy discussion with Waste Pro. I mean, they're the experts that we rely on to help us out with this. You had quite a bit of discussion with them, and they thought that this was the way for us to handle it. And they're going to work with us to try to accomplish it.
We've been discussing this with the solid waste provider for probably a year and a half, and this was their recommendation as staff to go to the every week bulky in order to clean up. And I think staff believes with the every week bulky and the ordinance revision, if adopted with the fines, will serve to clean our community up.
Well, Well, I would have liked to have had the ordinance and everything together, so that way we could see it instead of one first and then the other, so, that was my contention. And of course, when you get a company that says that it's a whole lot better to get it once a week than to call, of course it is. Because if they call, they only get, or how many times they go out there on a call, but if it's once a week, it's that same amount of money, so, so I understand where they're coming from there. But it works in other cities, and so that was an option that I would have liked to have looked at to see how the other cities are doing it. I mean, even the city of Charlotte does it when you call them up. Is a place as big as Charlotte can do it. I mean, some place as small as Monroe can do it. And that was just, that's my contention and my comment, so that's all I have.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, have a motion?
So,
Ma-
Have a motion?
Mayor,
Council anyway, right?
yeah, I just, again, if there's unreadiness, I would like for the staff to have an opportunity to address that unreadiness. There was, and no one wanted to go to once a week bulky waste pickup in less than I did. I was not in favor of it originally until the waste provider said that this is the best way to handle it. Because it's not just areas of the city where we have high rental property, high degrees of rental property, but it's all over the city. And that's, and that's what he said. And he said in order to address it, this is the best way to address it. But, the committee has done what we consider to be the charge that was given to us. And, if there are concerns that the staff thinks it needs to address in addition to that, then, I'd like to see them go ahead and do it. There's no pride of ownership in this. We were charged with something, and we did what we thought we were charged to do.
Mayor, if I might ask Councilmember Anthony a clarifying question, because I believe she was making the motion. Was your motion, ma'am, to approve the budget ordinance amendment to allow bulky item pickup beginning June 1, 2015? Ma'am, and I wanted to clarify that I believe that the action that you would have taken 2 weeks ago would have been similar, which would be a budget ordinance amendment for at that time it would have been for a longer period, but this would be from June 1 forward. And I'm looking at the finance director who is nodding as I think she recalls that. And the planning director's recollection, I believe, is the same as well.
Correct. The only difference is this is for June and not May and June.
And it would be to authorize the contract amendment as well with Waste Brothers. So it would be two things. But if that is your motion, ma'am, I just want to make sure we clarified it so that the clerk has that as well.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, that passed. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, sir. We're looking for consensus on revenue neutral tax rate, proposed fee schedule, and whether or not to go forward with public hearing on June 2nd.
Okay, and that rate increase is to what, 58.5? Is that right?
So I believe it's a 3.25% increase. I'm sorry, change.
I know it's in here,
Yeah, 5863, it's 3.13 cents.
yeah, 3.13 cents, okay. Well, obviously, I'd rather not. I do get the, in my own mind, I'd rather not have to raise it at all, but I do get the number deal over here on what exactly revenue neutral means, and most consumers are not gonna, at this rate, are not gonna pay a lot more tax in 2016 than they paid in 2015, so, and the tax increase is 3.5%.
Are we going to have something, a handout or something that succinctly tells people why this is actually revenue neutral and why it is not a tax increase?
We can.
Because, you know, it appears that it is a tax rate increase, but it's not an increase in the amount of revenue that we're trying to raise.
Correct. Depending on the effect of the county's revaluation of their value, most will see no change or a reduction at the residential level. We have this,
The answer is yes, we can put
This
something
one,
together.
but yes,
put
we
it
can-
out
Well,
there.
because
We can put
again,
that out
you
there.
know, I can think of a half a dozen people that I'm gonna run into on the street as soon as this hits the newspaper. And they're gonna ask me, why did I go up on taxes? And I want to be able to have something that shows them that's not what I did.
And it should be rather limited, as Billy said, it's fairly succinct. We really are only doing it for a number of reasons, and reevaluation is one of them, and loss of revenue from sales tax is the second one, and,
Business tax.
and the privilege tax. So you add the three up, that created a deficit, which, you know, mandated the increase. So, you know, but due to the devalue, that reevaluation, actually and nobody likes to hear this, of course, but the value of the property has gone down, so they'll actually net, not pay any more tax. So, it's
You make a motion.
to accept it.
And I have a motion.
I would ask just consensus because you all actually will vote after the
Yeah,
public
that's
hearing.
right.
So
I
just
don't
consensus.
it's not what I want, but I don't have a problem.
And y'all you certainly can change your mind.
Yeah,
After the public hearing.
I think I did a good job on the budget, but I won't be voting for it because I don't think it's fair for everybody not to get a cost of living raise, so I won't be voting for the budget.
So I think we got an answer on the tax rate fees, consensus to proceed in public hearing on the second.
That's when we approve it. That's on the agenda tonight for council to approve the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I think you got consensus. One other thing, the envelope that's sent out to each individual with this letter in it, if you turned it in, they'll let turn those in. I've got 3 here. I believe Dottie's already turned hers in. Okay. Billy, you turned yours in.
Never picked it up. So it's here somewhere.
Okay. Do you know where it is? Okay. All right, anything else? We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
We adjourn.